Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Reading Little Blue Books, out loud, while stoned. Today we're going to start Little Blue Book number 61, and it is titled, What is Religion? By Leo Tolstoy. So, here we go. I don't think there is a copyright date, but as always, most of these are copyrighted in the 1920s. Nope, no copyright date. Okay, what is religion? And where lies its essence? Chapter 1. In all human societies, at certain periods of their existence, a time has come when religion has first swerved from its original purpose. Then, diverging more and more, it has lost sight of that purpose, and has finally petrified into fixed forms, so that its influence on men's lives has become even less and less. And we'll pause for a moment. I forgot to silent my phone and its notifications, so we'll do that. There we go. Everything is silent now. Okay. At such times, the educated minority cease to believe in the established religious teaching, and only pretend to hold it because they think it necessary to do so in order to keep the mass of the people to the established order of life. But the mass of the people, though by inertia they keep to the established forms of religion, no longer guide their lives by its demands, but guide them only by custom and by state laws. That is what has repeatedly occurred in various human societies, but what is now happening in our Christian society has never happened before. It never before happened that the rich, ruling, and more educated minority, which has the most influence on the masses, not only disbelieved the existing religion, but was convinced that no religion at all is any longer needed, and instead of influencing those who are doubtful of the truth of generally professed religion, to accept some religious teaching more rational and clear than the prevalent one, influence them to regard religion. Turn the page. Boy, sometimes these pages are the hardest things to turn. Okay. In general, as a thing that has outlived its day, and is now not merely a useless, but even a harmful social organ, like the veriform appendix in the human body. Religion is regarded by such men not as something known to us by inward experience, but as an external phenomenon, a disease, as it were, which overtakes certain people and which we can only investigate by its external symptoms. Religion, in the opinion of some of these men, arose from attributing a spirit to various aspects of nature. Animalism. In the opinion of others, it arose from the supposed possibility of communicating with deceased ancestors. In the opinion of others, again, it arose from fear of the forces of nature. But, say the learned men of our day, since science has now proved that trees and stones cannot be endowed with a spirit, that dead ancestors do not know what is done by the living, and that the aspects of nature are explainable by natural causes, it follows that the need for religion has passed, as well as the need for all those restrictions with which, in consequence of religious beliefs, people have hitherto hampered themselves. In the opinion of these learned men, where was a period of ignorance, the religious period, that has long been outlived by humanity, though some occasional atavistic indications of it still remain. Then came the metaphysical period, which is now also outlived. But we, enlightened people, are living in a scientific period, a period of positive science, which replaces religion and will bring humanity to a height of development it could never have reached while subject to the superstitious teachings of religion. Early in 1901, the distinguished French savant Berthelot delivered a speech in which he told his hearers that the day of religion has passed, and religion must now be replaced by science. I refer to this speech because it is in the first to my hand, and because it was delivered in the metropolis of the educated world by a universally recognized savant. But the same thought is continually and ubiquitously expressed in every form, from philosophic treatise down to newspaper feuilletons. Mr. Berthelot says in that speech that there were formerly two motors moving humanity, force and religion, but that these motors have now become superfluous, for in their place we have science. By science, Mr. Berthelot, like all devotees of science, evidently means a science embracing the whole range of things man knows, harmoniously united, coordinated, and in command of such methods that the data it obtains are unquestionably true. But as no such science really exists, and what is now called science consists of a collection of haphazard, disconnected scraps of knowledge, many of them quite useless, and such as, instead of supplying undoubted truth, very frequently supply the grossest delusions, exhibited as truth today, but refuted tomorrow. It is evident that the thing Mr. M. Berthelot thinks must replace religion is something non-existent. Consequently, the assertion made by M. Berthelot, and by those who agree with him, to the effect that science will replace religion, is quite arbitrary, and rests on a quite unjustifiable faith in the infallibility of science, a faith similar to the belief in an infallible church. Turn page. Yet men who are said to be, and who consider themselves to be, educated, are quite convinced that a science already exists, which should and can replace religion, and which even has already replaced it. Religion is obsolete. Belief in anything but science is ignorance. Science will arrange all that is needful, and one must be guided in life by science alone. This is what is thought and said, both by scientists themselves and also by those men of the crowd who, though far from scientific, believe in the scientists and join them in asserting that religion is an obsolete superstition, and that we must be guided in life by science only, that is, in reality, by nothing at all, for science, by reason of its very aim, which is to study all that exists, can afford no guidance for the life of man. Chapter 2. The learned men of our times have decided that religion is not wanted, and that science will replace it, or has already done so. But the fact remains that, now as formerly, no human society and no rational man has existed or can exist without a religion. I use the term rational man because an irrational man may live, as the beasts do, without a religion. But a rational man cannot live without one, for only religion gives a rational man the guidance he needs, telling him what he should do, and what first and what next. A rational man cannot live without religion, precisely because reason is characteristic of its nature. Every animal is guided by its actions, apart from those to which it is impelled by the need to satisfy its immediate desires, by a consideration of the direct result of its actions. Having considered those results by such means of comprehension as it possesses, an animal makes its actions conform to those consequences, and it always unhesitatingly acts in one of the same way. In accord with those considerations, a bee, for instance, flies for honey and stores it in the hive, because in winter it will need food for itself and for the young. And beyond these considerations it knows and can know nothing. So also a bird is influenced when it builds its nest, or migrates from the north to the south and back again. Every animal acts in a like direct, immediate necessity, but prompted by considerations or anticipated results. With man, however, it is not so. The difference between a man and an animal lies in the fact that the perceptive capabilities possessed by an animal are limited to what we call instinct, whereas man's fundamental perceptive capability is reason. A bee collecting honey can have no doubts as to whether it is good or bad to collect honey. But a man gathering in his corn or fruit cannot but consider whether he is diminishing the prospects of obtaining future harvests, or whether he is not depriving his neighbor of food. Nor can he help wondering what the children whom he now feeds will become like, and much else. The most important questions of conduct in life cannot be solved conclusively by a reasonable man, because there is such a superabundance of possible consequences which he cannot but be aware of. Every rational man knows, or at least feels, that in the most important questions of life he can guide himself neither by personal impulses nor by considerations of the immediate consequences of his activity. For the consequences he foresees are too numerous and too various, and are often contradictory one to another, being as likely to prove harmful as beneficial to himself and to other people. There is a legend which tells of an angel who descended to earth and, entering a devout family, slew a child in its cradle. When asked why he did so, he explained that the child would have become the greatest of malefactors and would have destroyed the happiness of the family. But it is thus not only with the question which human lives are useful, useless, or harmful. None of the most important questions of life can a reasonable man decide by considerations of their immediate results and consequences. A reasonable man cannot be satisfied with the considerations that guide the actions of an animal. A man may regard himself as an animal among animals, living for the passing day, or he may consider himself as a member of a family, a society, or a nation, living for centuries. Or he may, and even must, necessarily, for reason irresistibly prompts him to this, consider himself as a part of the whole infinite universe existing eternally. And therefore reasonable men should do, and always have done, in reference to the infinitely small affairs of life affecting their actions, what in mathematics is called integrate, that is to say, they must set up, besides their relation to the intermediate facts of life, a relation to the whole immense infinite in time and space, conceived as one whole. And such establishment of man's relation to that whole, of which he feels himself to be a part, from which he draws guidance for his actions, is what has been called and is called religion. And therefore religion always has been, and cannot cease to be, a necessary and indispensable condition of the life of the reasonable man and of all reasonable humanity. It's the end of chapter 2. And we'll hydrate. And we'll take a little hit off the Luca Unicorn Mini. I have the Luca Seahorse. I use it quite often too. But we'll let this heat up. And we'll go first round. And where's our minutes at? We're at 14 minutes. Okay. So we let it heat up for the first round. Oh, first round's done. Second round we hit. And we're smoking lavender today. So, one more sip and then chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3. That is how religion has always been understood by men who were not devoid of the highest, that is, religious consciousness, which distinguishes man from the beast. The word religion itself comes from either religare, religions, revering the gods, or has been commonly supposed from religare, to bind, an obligation to the highest powers. Pardon me. The oldest and most common definition of religion is that religion is the link between man and God. Les obligations de thame envers Dieu viole la religion. Man's obligations to God, that is religion, says von Vogers. A similar meaning is given to religion by Schleiermacher and Feuerbach, who acknowledges the basis of religion to be man's consciousness of his dependence on God. Religion is a matter between each man and God. And there's a couple more definitions, and we're going to skip those. So that the essence of religion has always been understood, and is now understood by men not deprived of the highest human characteristic, to be the establishment by men of a religion between himself and the infinite being or beings whose power he feels over him. And this relation, however different it may be for different nations and at different times, has always defined for men their destiny in the world, from which guidance for their conduct has naturally flowed. A Jew understood his relation to the infinite to be that he was a member of a nation chosen by God from among all nations, and that he had therefore to observe in the sight of God the agreement made by God with his people. A Greek understood his relation to be that being dependent on the representation of eternity, i.e., on the gods, he ought to do what pleased them. A Brahmin understands himself to be a manifestation of the infinite Brahma, and considers that he ought, by renunciation of life, to strive towards union with that highest being. A Buddhist considered, and considers, his relation to the infinite to be that, passing from one form of life to another, he inevitably suffers, and those sufferings proceed from passions and desires, and therefore his business is to strive to annihilate all passions and all desires, and so pass into nirvana. Every religion is a setting up between man and the infinite life in which he feels himself allied of some relation, from which he obtains guidance for his conduct. And therefore, if a religion does not establish any relation between man and the infinite, as for instance in the case with idolatry or sorcery, then it is not a real religion, but only a degeneration. If, even, religion establishes some relation between man and God, but does this by means of assertions not accordant with reason and present-day knowledge, so that one cannot really believe the assertions, that also is not a religion, but only a counterfeit. If a religion does not unite the life of man with the infinite life, again, it is not a religion. Nor does a belief in propositions from which no definite direction for human activity results constitute a religion. True religion is a relation accordant with reason and knowledge, which man establishes with the infinite life surrounding him, and it is such as binds his life to that infinity and guides his conduct. Chapter 4. Though there never was an age when, or place where man lived without a religion, yet the learned men of today say, like Molaire's involuntary doctor, who asserted that the liver is on the left side, we have changed all that, and they think that we can and should live without any religion. But, nevertheless, religion remains, what it has been in the past, the chief motor and heart of human societies, and without it, as without a heart, human life is impossible. There have been, and there are, many different religions, for the expression of man's relation to the infinite and to God, or to the gods, differs at different times and in different places, according to the stages of development of different nations. But never in any society of men Since men first became rational creatures, could they live, or have they lived, without a religion? It is true that there have been, and sometimes are, periods in the life of nations when the existing religions have been so perverted and have lagged so far behind life as to cease to guide it. But this cessation of its action on men's lives, occurring at times in all religions, has been but temporary. It is characteristic of religion, as of all that is really alive, that it is born, develops, grows old, dies, and again comes to life, and comes to life ever in forms more perfect than before. After a period of higher development in religion, a period of decrepitude and lifelessness always follows, to be usually succeeded in its turn by a period of regeneration and the establishment of religious doctrine wiser and clearer than before. Such periods of development, decrepitude, and regeneration have occurred in all religions. In the profound religion of the Brahmanism, as soon as it began to grow old and to petrify into fixed and coarse forms not suited to its fundamental meaning, came on one side a renaissance of Brahmanism itself, and on the other the lofty teachings of Buddhism, which advanced humanity's comprehension of its religion to the infinite. A similar decline occurred in the Greek and Roman religions, and then, following the lowest depths of the decline, appeared Christianity. The same thing occurred again with church Christianity, which the Byzantine denigrated into idolatry and polytheism. To counterbalance this perverted Christianity, there arose on one hand the Paulicians, and on the other, in opposition to the doctrine of the Trinity and to morality, Morialitary, Mariolatory, came strict Mohammedanism with its fundamental dogma of one God. The same thing happened again with papal medieval Christianity, which evoked the Reformation, so that periods when religion weakens in its influence on the majority of men are a necessary condition of the life and development of all religious teachings. This occurs because every religious teaching in its true meaning, however crude it may be, always establishes a relation between man and the infinite, which is alike for all men. Every religion regards man as equally insignificant compared to infinity, and therefore every religion contains the conception of the equality of all men before that which it regards as God, whether that be lightning, wind, a tree, an animal, a hero, or a deceased, or even a living king, as occurred in Rome, so that the admission of the equality of man is an inevitable and fundamental characteristic of every religion. But as equality among men as equality among men has never existed anywhere in actual life and does not now exist, it has happened that as soon as a new religious teaching appeared, always including a confession of equality among all men, then at once those people for whom inequality was profitable tried to hide this essential feature by perverting the teaching itself. So it has happened always, wherever a new religious teaching appeared, and this has been done for the most part not consciously, but merely because those to whom inequality was profitable, the rulers and the rich, in order to feel themselves justified by the teaching without having to alter their position, have tried by all means to fasten upon the religious teachings an interpretation sanctioning inequality. And, naturally, a religion so perverted that those who lorded it over others could consider themselves justified in so doing, when passed on to the common people, instilled into them also the idea that submission to those who exercise authority is demanded by the religion they profess. Chapter 5. All human activity is evoked by three motive causes: feeling, reason, and suggestion. The last named being the same thing that doctors call hypnotism. Sometimes man acts only under the influence of feeling. simply striving to get what he desires. Sometimes he acts solely under the influence of reason, which shows him what he ought to do. Sometimes, and most frequently, man acts because he himself or other people have suggested an activity to him, and he unconsciously submits to the suggestion. Under normal conditions of life, all three influences play their part in prompting a man's activity. Feeling draws him towards a certain activity. Reason judges of this activity in the light of present circumstances as well as by past experience and future expectation. And suggestion causes a man, apart from feeling and reason, to carry out the actions evoked by feeling and approved by reason. Were there no feeling, man would undertake nothing. If reason did not exist, man would yield at once to many contradictory feelings harmful to himself and to others. Were there no capacity of yielding to one's own or other people's suggestion, man would have unceasingly to experience the feeling that prompted him to a particular activity, and to keep his reason continually intent on the verification of the expediency of that feeling. And therefore, all these three influences are indispensable for even the simplest human activity. If a man walks from one place to another, this occurs because feeling has impelled him to move from one place to another. Reason has approved of the intention and dictated means for its accomplishment, and in this case, stepping along a certain road, and the muscles of the body obey, and the man moves along the road indicated. While he is going along, both his feeling and his reason are freed for other activity, which could not be the case but for his capacity to submit to suggestion. This is what happens with all human activity, and among the rest, with the most important of them, religious activity. Feeling evokes the need to establish a man's relation to God. Reason defines that relation, and suggestion impels man to the activity flowing from that relation. But this is so only as long as religion remains unperverted. As soon as perversion commences, the part played by suggestion grows ever stronger and stronger, and the activity of feeling and of reason weakens. The methods of suggestion are always and everywhere the same. They consist in taking advantage of a man at times when he is most susceptible to suggestion, during childhood and at important occurrences in life, deaths, births, or marriages, and then acting on him by means of art, architecture, sculpture, painting, music, and dramatic performances, and, while he is in a condition of receptivity comparable to that produced on individuals by semi-hypnotization, instilling into him whatever the suggestors wish. This process may be observed in all ancient religions, in the lofty religion of the Brahmanism degenerating into gross idolatry of multitudinous images in various temples, accompanied by singing and the smoke of incense. In the ancient Hebrew religion, preaching by the prophets, changing into a worship of God in a gregarious temple with ostentatious songs and processions. In the lofty religion of Buddhism, transforming itself with its monasteries and images of Buddha and innumerable ostentatious rites into impenetrable Lamaism, and in Taoism with its sorcery and incantations. Always in all religious teachings, when they begin to be perverted, their guardians, having brought men into a state in which their reason acted but feebly, employed every effort to suggest and instill into men whatever they wished them to believe. And in all religions, it was found necessary to suggest the same three things, which serve as a basis for all the perversions to which a degenerating religion is exposed. First, it is suggested that there are men of a peculiar kind, who alone can act as intermediaries between man and God, or the gods. Secondly, that miracles have been and are performed, providing and confirming the truth of what is told by these intermediaries between man and God. And thirdly, that there are certain words, repeated verbally or written in books, which express the unalterable will of God, or of the gods, and which are therefore sacred and infallible. And as soon as, under the influence of hypnotism, these propositions are accepted, then also all that the intermediaries between man and God say is also accepted as sacred truth. And the chief aim of the perversion of religion is attained, namely, the concealment of the law of human equality, and even the establishment and assertion of the greatest inequality, the separation into castes, the separation into chosen people and Gentiles, into orthodox and heretics, saints and sinners. This very thing has occurred and is occurring in Christianity. Complete inequality among men has been admitted, and they are divided, not only with reference to their comprehension of the teaching, into clerics and laity, but with reference to social position, into those who have power and those who ought to submit to power, which, in accord with the teaching of Paul, is acknowledged as having been ordained of God. And I think we'll stop there. That is the end of chapter 5. And we'll pick up with chapter 6 in part 2 of What is Religion by Leo Tolstoy, Little Blue Book number 61. Thanks for listening.